Breaking tonight, reaction pouring into President Trump's bombshell allegations against the man who preceded him in the White House. Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. What a day it's been. The president setting off a firestorm in the media early this morning, making direct accusations against his predecessor, President Barack Obama. President Trump tweeting at 6:35 a.m. that he, quote, just found out that Mr. Obama had ordered wiretaps of Trump Tower just before the November election, a claim for which the current president did, quote, not offer any proof. The president went on to indicate that Obama had had an earlier request for surveillance turned down by a court. President Trump compared the whole thing to a Nixon Watergate-style crime and cover-up and called his predecessor, quote, a bad or sick guy, close quote. And for his part, former President Obama's office or spokesman did release a statement on behalf of the former president saying, quote, a cardinal rule of the Obama administration was that no White House official ever interfered with any independent investigation led by the Department of Justice. As part of that practice, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Any suggestion otherwise is simply false. The White House so far has been mum on all of this. So let's try to get to the bottom of it tonight. Joining me now is former Trump campaign manager, the man who engineered Donald Trump's run to the Republican nomination, Corey Lewandowski. All right, good evening, Corey. Crazy day today. You probably know President Trump better than anyone in terms of your experience with him from the time he first announced until about a year or so later when you got off the campaign. When the president tweeted at 6:35 this morning, would it be unusual for the rest of his staff to not have any idea what he was tweeting about or any forewarning?
You know, Judge, it wouldn't be unusual because the president is a man who is willing to take his message directly to the American people. And there were many times during the campaign where I would wake up, and I'm sure it's the same thing that Sean Spicer wakes up to and says, wow, the president just tweeted. So it's not unusual that he has taken his message directly to the American people without consulting his White House staff or prior to that, the campaign staff.
Okay, so here's the problem. We have been waiting all day for any kind of response from the White House. We are still waiting, and there is no backup, no evidence, no support for that claim, which is, I'm sure you know, is quite an incredible allegation to have one president accuse another president of a Nixon-type wiretapping.
Yeah, but Judge, here's the issue. What we've seen from the previous administration is that they did spend time listening to conversations between then Senator Jeff Sessions and the ambassador to Russia while he was in his U.S. Senate office. If that were to take place, which supposedly did take place, what other conversations did they listen in on from the American public?
That they were listening to conversations between then Senator Sessions and the Russian ambassador Kislyak? Or are you talking about Mike Flynn and Kislyak?
No, I'm talking about Jeff Sessions. So, you know, this previous administration has said that they were aware of the conversation on two different occasions where then Senator Jeff Sessions met with the ambassador, one time during the Republican National Convention, but more importantly, the second time that he met with was in the United States Senate office in a federal building, and they were monitoring what a United States senator was having a private conversation with, is what I understand. And if that is the case, that's very concerning. And so is it possible that that previous administration was listening to the conversations that took place in Trump Tower from their political opponents? If that is the case, and what Donald Trump alludes to is accurate, then that's very, very disturbing for our future going forward of what the federal government has done to the American public.
Well, right now, I am unaware of any claim of them listening to a conversation as opposed to being aware of a meeting between then Senator Sessions and Ambassador Kislyak, which, by the way, Corey, I mean, I don't think there's any problem with it. I mean, the senator met with 25 other ambassadors in the same year, and there are public photographs of them together. I mean, No one's trying to hide anything. And he met with him as a senator. But I want to keep moving on this Watergate type thing. Now, for the feds for the FISA court to issue this warrant, and then for it to be denied, and then for them to go back, does it surprise you that the Obama administration was doing everything in its power to monitor what was going on at Trump Tower?
Well, Judge, here's the problem. We don't even know for sure that the former Department of Justice under Attorney General Lynch actually applied for a FISA court warrant in June, which is what some of the mainstream media is reporting, and then was denied, and then applied for a second FISA warrant in October and potentially was granted that. If that did occur, that's very troubling. The fact that the Federal Intelligence Surveillance Act is being used to listen to political opponents of the President of the United States is very, very damaging, very dangerous. And just think for 1 second, just for one iota, if George W. Bush would have used the same thing to listen to Barack Obama when he was a candidate, when he was, spending time with people who have talked about bombing, a number of places, like Jeremiah Wright. Think of the outrage of the mainstream media if for 1 second President George W. Bush asked, or his Justice Department asked, for a FISA warrant on then-candidate Barack Obama, what the mainstream media would be doing today. If that didn't happen, there's a serious problem.
I want to get to some of the facts here about this guy, Carter Page. Carter Page was on the campaign, and some of these reports are indicating that Paul Manafort, as well as Carter Page, had other contacts with the Russian government, and they may be the basis for the FISA warrant. And by the way, I'm going to make clear with my next guest, former Attorney General Mike Mukasey, that it isn't necessarily the FBI that makes the application and the Department of Justice. It could be the NSA. It could be other intelligence agencies. But Carter Page was someone who came on the campaign for Trump while you were there. This is a man who supposedly, where there's admitted Russian connections. What can you tell us about this man?
Judge, let me be clear about two things. Number one, Paul Manafort's role in the campaign was to go and get some delegates for the Trump campaign while we were in the middle of a delegate fight with Senator Cruz. That was the role of his job on the campaign. Secondly, Carter Page, I've never met Carter Page. To the best of my knowledge, the President of the United States has never met Carter Page. Carter Page is a person who's going out telling everybody that he was part of the campaign. He had no formal role in the campaign. He had no role whatsoever in the campaign. He had nothing to do with the campaign.
Wasn't he a foreign policy advisor?
He had no, Judge, I was on the campaign for 18 months. I never met the guy. And for anybody to say otherwise is factually inaccurate. I don't know who Carter Page is. I never had a conversation with Carter Page. I never met Carter Page. And anybody who says otherwise is just not being truthful. And let me tell you this. A lot of people now want to claim that they were on the Trump campaign because he was now the President of the United States, who had nothing to do with the campaign. And Carter Page is one of those guys.
Okay. And is it possible that if there were the warrant issued, and it seems to be based on open source reporting that there was this warrant issued, that it could be simply, benign communications between a computer, a server in Trump Tower, and a Russian bank, whether it be emails or anything like that?
Well, of course that's possible. And the bottom line is, Judge, and you know this and I know this, anybody who potentially had communications with the Russian government to potentially, if they wanted to impact the outcome of the U.S. election, I am certain that the government, the President of the United States would say that person should be prosecuted. There's no place for this whatsoever in our system. There's no question.
You know what? And Paul Ryan seems to confirm that based upon the intelligence that he got after the president ordered the investigation, there was no indication, no substance that any American was cooperating with the Russian government. And that's based on a statement by Paul Ryan last night. Anyway, Corey Lewandowski, thanks so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And joining me now to dig deeper into these allegations made by President Trump is former Attorney General of the United States, Judge Michael Mukasey. All right, Judge, I'm going to ask you some very general questions. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, now, there are reports that there were 2 applications made to a FISA court, one that was denied and the second that was granted, one denied in June. Now, Judge, would you agree with me that applications to the FISA courts are, according to everything that I've read and former attorneys who've applied for these, are almost always granted, so a denial must be based on, you know, a real lack of any facts? Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, statistically, they are almost always granted for the simple reason that the Justice Department is generally pretty conservative about what it puts in, which is to say, it tries to create as much of to establish as much probable cause as it can. But the fact that it was denied means there was very little there. What's interesting is that application mentions the name Trump, although it's not clear in what connection.
Okay.
And that application was denied.
Okay, that's denied. So they go back. The Obama administration goes back. Whether it's the FBI or NSA, we don't know who goes back to the FISA court. And in fact, what's amazing...
It's got to be the FBI, because they're the ones with the jurisdiction to conduct this kind of surveillance inside the United States.
Okay, so if the FBI does it and the FBI makes that second application and takes Trump's name out of it, it is granted in October. Now, is there always a requirement of probable cause? It's very different than a requirement for a wire in a regular criminal case. Isn't that correct?
There's a requirement of probable cause, but it's probable cause of a different sort. In a criminal case, it's probable cause that a crime was committed,
right,
and probable cause that the wiretap will disclose evidence of it. But this is not that. The only thing they have to show is probable cause to believe that somebody on that wire is acting as an agent of a foreign power. Now, this may very well have had, and likely did have, nothing whatsoever to do with Mr. Trump, because there were allegations about Manafort getting money from from Putin's puppet in the Ukraine and so on that go way back.
But Judge, I want to stop you there, because Manafort was not even on the campaign in the first application to the FISA court. Manafort did not come on until after Corey was gone.
Okay.
So okay. So
and the first application was not granted.
Right, exactly. It was the second one that was granted. So now, how would we at this point get our hands on that FISA warrant?
We wouldn't, because the fact that this is out is extraordinarily unusual. FISA activity generally is, number one, highly confidential, and number two, for very good reason, because first of all, we don't want foreign powers or terrorist organizations to find out that we're eavesdropping. And second, we don't want to damage people's reputation if it turns out that there's nothing there.
All right. Now, Judge, in the last day of the Obama administration, in the last days, the president ended up expanding the powers of the NSA, the National Security Agency, to share information with about 16 other agencies. By tearing down the bureaucratic barriers and sharing intelligence, supposedly, with other agencies, many would think that's a good thing. But there are those who feel that this was a tee-up, a setup, so that there could indeed be these kinds of leaks that never before would have occurred, but because there are so many more players involved, that Donald Trump was almost set up once the Obama administration was gone by those people who were still in the government with access to this information.
That is not an implausible theory, because pushing this out in an extraordinary way, particularly when very little, I mean, we're not talking about a terrorist investigation, particularly when very little came of it, I think is pretty unusual.
All right. And my final question. When the President Obama ended up kicking out a number of Russian officials, I believe there were about 35 Russian operatives, he did not throw out this Ambassador Kislyak, who Jeff Sessions, as senator, met with, which wasn't unusual for him to meet with an ambassador. Why is there all this hoopla about Kislyak being a bad guy? If he was so bad, why didn't Obama throw him out?
No, the hoopla is contrived. Kislyak may very well be a bad guy. I mean, he was a Russian ambassador. But the point is, he is the Russian ambassador, and that appointment with Sessions was set up by the Justice Department, by the State Department, Obama's State Department, as they set up all his other appointments with foreign officials.
Okay. Judge Michael Mukasey, thanks so much for joining us and shedding light on this.
Happy to be with you.
Thank you. Let's get back to the news of the day. Still no official word from the White House about those bombshell allegations from President Trump this morning that President Obama had wiretapped him and his campaign. I'm joined now by former Department of Justice official J. Christian Adams. All right, good evening, Christian. Let me ask you this. Last night, on Bret Baier's show, Paul Ryan responded, and I'm going to ask them to put up his response in a minute, but I want to identify what was going on. After Hillary lost, the president ordered an investigation by his intelligence community so that we could get a report to Congress as to whether or not there was any kind of influence by anyone in the Trump campaign or in this country with the Russian government. Paul Ryan answered that question on Bret Baier as to whether or not they found anything like that out by saying this.
That we have seen no evidence that anybody in this campaign or any other American was in on it with the Russians to meddle in our elections. We know they meddled. Russia as an adversary, and that's something we have to work to counteract.
I got it. But
okay, and so what he's saying is, hey, we got the report that the president ordered claiming this, and we got nothing. What does that tell you?
The important part of that, Judge, is that if Paul Ryan has access to the information, which we can presume as Speaker he does, it undermines the entire narrative that somehow the Russians were involved in collaborating with certain Americans on the Trump campaign to swing the results of the election.
Okay, and he makes it clear because the president ordered the report to go to Congress. I believe it went to Congress on January 9th. He ordered it on December 6th. But I want, you're a lawyer, you're in the Justice Department. I want you to listen to this statement that was issued by a spokesman for President Obama. Ben Rhodes says that there's a cardinal rule of the Obama administration. No White House official ever interfered with any independent investigation. And as part of that practice, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen, and any suggestion otherwise is false. The operative word to me being ordered. How about you?
That's exactly right. There's a big difference between ordered and knowing everything else about it. And you notice Ben Rhodes doesn't deny that they knew everything else about this FISA warrant tapping into the Trump campaign in the middle of the fall election. Judge, look, if this happened, folks need to understand this is what the tactics of a police state are, to use intelligence gathering services against political opponents. If this happened, we've crossed a very dangerous line in America. It makes Watergate look like a joke. I mean, they were bugging an office of a secretary with a piece of hardware from the 50s. This is entirely different if it's true.
Well, and you know what? When the president made that allegation, and of course this is all based on open source reporting, which means that a number of very credible reporters, media have reported on this. There are a lot of sources supporting that there was a FISA warrant, that Trump Tower computer in there was being monitored. I mean, for the original FISA court to not grant the warrant, there's like a 0.03 chance of that happening. Does it tell you that the Obama administration was over the top in trying to get into that campaign to monitor it?
Absolutely. You know, FISA warrants are almost always granted, like Judge McCasey pointed out, because they're so carefully crafted before they get to the court. But to have it granted in October in the middle of a campaign, and we've seen the product of it, Judge, Americans are going to learn what the deep state is, because that intelligence information about Mike Flynn, his conversations with the Russians, it got out into the Washington Post. That's exactly how it is working in a very dangerous fashion, where intelligence operations are becoming political weapons.
Well, and the Washington Post, of course, being a very left-leaning newspaper. And finally, you know, what is amazing is that on the one hand, you've got President Trump saying, you know, Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton are good people, and, you know, almost we got to let bygones be bygones in that 60 Minutes, and yet everything is being teed up so that he is being someone who is almost victimized by all of these leaks, with a broadening of intelligence information across the whole 16 or 18 agencies. Go ahead.
It's a very deliberate campaign being engineered to smear and delegitimize the president, to smear and delegitimize General Sessions, to hamstring the administration into enacting its proposals. Remember, almost all of the Justice Department are a bunch of Democrats. If you look at the donation rates, if you look across the government, they are foes of President Trump.
All right. And what's amazing is all those Democrats criticizing Senator Sessions, Nancy Pelosi and McCaskill, who can't wait to get in front of a camera, they met with that Russian ambassador, too. You know, they talk out of both sides of their mouth. J. Christian Adams, thank you.
All right. Take care.
Welcome back to Justice. Presidential politics taking on a whole new meaning today. And if you're just joining us, let's get you caught up. President Trump unleashing a string of tweets this morning, in short, accusing former President Obama of being responsible for wiretapping the Trump campaign inside of Trump Tower in New York City. Serious allegations indeed. And here to weigh in on it is my political panel. In Washington, D.C., GOPAC Chairman David Avella, and in Boston, Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh. All right, I'm going to start with first the Jeff Sessions the claim that he is connected to Russia and his recusal this week. Now, Marianne, is there anything unusual about a United States senator meeting with an ambassador from another country? Isn't that generally what they're supposed to do?
For most senators, the difference here, though, Judge, with Jeff Sessions was the timing and the role he played in the Trump campaign at the time. The timing was when everyone was talking about Russia, writing about Russia, hacking this election, number one. Number two, it was also around the time when Obama imposed the sanctions against Russia, and Russia was mad at Obama and Clinton. Number three, Jeff Sessions ran and led the foreign policy and national security team, as you mentioned earlier in this show, for Donald Trump. Of course, the ambassador of Russia wanted to meet with Jeff Sessions during that time.
I never said that Jeff Sessions ran the national security team.
Carter Page was on it, but Jeff Sessions did run
Jeff
it.
Sessions
and
now.
Yes,
but here's the problem. At the time he met him, the FISA warrant was turned down. There wasn't enough to get a warrant. So, David,
I'm not connecting the two.
You're not connecting the two? I am. What I'm saying is if there was something there and the Obama administration was trying to get to it, they didn't even have a scintilla of evidence to get a warrant. David, let me ask you this. If Kislyak was such a bad dude that, another station called him today a top spy from Russia, why didn't President Obama order him out of the country with the 35 other Russian officials that he threw out?
It's a great question, and yet another tactic that the Democrats are using to try to continue to paint that somehow Hillary Clinton's loss was because Donald Trump and the Russians were working together to get information out about a private server that Hillary Clinton wasn't supposed to have, but did do work on it.
Okay, so then, Marianne, if this same guy Kislyak was at the Obama White House 22 times, how could he be such a top Russian dirtbag?
Well, first of all, the reason they didn't remove him is Obama decided not to go that far. Instead, he took 35 lower-level diplomats to make a point. He wasn't looking to escalate it, number one. Number two, you're missing the context here. Jeff Sessions was a desired conversation with Vislak for the very role he is playing with Trump. What you have to look for now is if Sessions discussed sanctions or anything like that in that meeting with Vislak, he will have to resign. There's no question there. And that's what's outstanding.
Okay, he's in a meeting with like 10 other people. I mean, what are we talking about here?
There were
Judge,
three.
wait a second.
Judge, there were three
David, you
other.
go. David, you go.
Russia was never a problem for the Democrats until, typical of Democrats, something they believe happened to them. And now all of a sudden, because they believe they lost an election because of Russian interference, now Russia is this world power that has to be taken care of, as opposed to all the years before when Obama's like, I can have a reset with these folks. I can work with them. And now all of a sudden, because Russia apparently or allegedly hacked into Hillary Clinton's private server, now they're a world threat again.
But is there some truth to what Marianne is saying? And that is that the context and the timing lends a different interpretation to it, David.
What shred of evidence is there that the Trump campaign worked with the Russians on anything?
Well, that's true, Marianne. Paul Ryan said there is none.
No. First of all, Judge, here are the facts. The investigation into Trump, his associates, and the relationship with Russia started in the spring of 2015. That is a fact.
Who told you that?
Then President Obama.
Who told you that?
That's widely known.
Well, wait a minute.
President Obama.
You're telling me in 2015, if this was a fact, why did Obama wait until after they lost in December of 2016 to start an investigation if this was a fact?
Two separate investigations, Judge. The one into the association with Russia started in spring of 2015. Obama got his first briefing in June of 2015. The post-election investigation was into the election itself, so separate and distinct. I think that it will all be bundled into one, but the start of the investigation in 2015 was different than the one that he then ended up doing after the election. That report, very separate. Number two, what you should listen to Paul Ryan say is what the interview he gave earlier in that day, where he said about Sessions, unless Sessions is under investigation, he doesn't need to recuse himself. If he is, he should.
Okay,
and he did.
He's not under investigation, and nobody's claiming that. He met with the Russian ambassador, just like, put up these pictures. Nancy Pelosi, who denied she ever met this guy Kislyak. Do we have a picture of them? She lied about that. There's Nancy Pelosi, and there's Kislyak. All right, and the same Schumer is having coffee and donuts with Putin, and the Clintons are the ones who sold 25% of our uranium to the Russians. But anyway, don't go anywhere, guys. We got to go to a break. We want to continue this in a moment. Back now with the panel, Marianne Marsh and David Avella. All right, guys, let's get to today's news. I want to now move to this FISA investigation. Now, David, clearly during the course of a campaign, you've got one president, one White House, and what they are doing, and clearly the president knows about this because there would be no warrant to a FISA court or application, I should say, seeking a warrant without the attorney general behind it, and clearly the president knowing that the Trump campaign was being investigated. Now, does that smack of Nixon Watergate type McCarthyism? What is going on here? What is this? What is the biggest concern for the American people?
Well, the biggest concern here is that it would be true if it actually happened. And for those who think this is true, all they have to do is point to the fact that the President Obama, through media reports confirming it, actually did approve the wiretapping of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And so how is it beyond reasonable doubt that he didn't do it this time? No.
But here, Marianne, is the issue. If you've got one president surveilling another president a candidate for president during the course of a campaign, that's about as chilling as you can get in terms of a democracy and a free election.
No president can get a FISA warrant. That's a fact. If Donald Trump wanted to do it tonight.
Whoa. I'm going to stop you right there. Our viewers need to know that even the response by Ben Rose, I thought was doublespeak. No president can order it. You've got to have your attorney general go in and you've got to seek a warrant and the judge orders it. But there's no question that President Obama knew, if any of this is true, that his administration was going after a candidate that he despised and against a woman that he supported.
Judge, here's the facts, okay? You know this as a prosecutor and a judge. You can only get a FISA warrant if there's reasonable proof of criminal activity or espionage. And if Donald Trump and others in Trump Tower are under surveillance with a FISA warrant, that's a bad place to be.
Let me tell you why you're wrong. It doesn't have to be a crime, Marianne. It's a different
criminal
standard.
Activity
it is
or
a
espionage.
Different standard of proof. All right, we're not just talking about a crime of probable cause. Someone can be an unwitting agent if someone is listening to a conversation with a foreign intelligence or foreign entity. They may not know it. You cannot accuse based on a warrant of someone of criminal activity.
That's how you know, but that's the bar you have to clear to get the surveillance. What I think Donald Trump did this morning is disclose this because he believes other information is coming out. And I think the fact that they disclosed Jared Kushner and Mike Flynn's meeting in Trump Tower with Vislak after Sessions recused himself on Thursday afternoon, which they've never done anything like that. You have to connect those activities together. I think they're related. And I think Trump is trying to get in front of this, blame it on Obama wrongly, to get to frame this story about this because there's more news coming out.
You know, Jeff Sessions, I know him to be an honorable man. He recused himself, David, because of the possible appearance of impropriety, not that he did anything wrong. And Nancy Pelosi, who says a recusal is an admission that something went wrong. Well, Nancy, you're wrong again, but I'm not going to waste my time on you. Now, the fact that Jared came out, as Marianne said, tried to get ahead of it, isn't that a smart thing to do at this point, given that everybody's like so crazy about Russia, I'm ready to throw myself under my desk just in case they're flying overhead?
Well, it is smart to get all the facts out on the table, and Americans can decide for themselves what's legitimate and what's not legitimate here. But it goes to another point, Judge, is that in all of this, Russia cost Hillary Clinton the election. Not one shred of evidence has ever been shown as to what exactly they did and exactly how did she lose the election as a result of it. Because here is the facts. In January of 2016, Hillary Clinton's approval rating was 42% favorable, 51% unfavorable.
Look,
on election day.
On election day. She just lost. And you know what?
That's
the investigation that the president ordered, Marianne, and I got to go in 15 seconds, Ryan, there was no evidence, and the report was supposed to go to Congress, of any American involvement. So the fact that they were too stupid to have their emails protected is their problem. Nothing has been claimed to be untrue, Marianne.
Here's the fact. The investigation that started in the spring of 2015, that Comey has gone to Capitol Hill, the Senate Intelligence Committee a few weeks ago, to Senator Graham's office yesterday. He's never admitted there's an investigation.
I'm going to ask you to tell me where you got that spring of 2015, because no one can seem to find it here. But I want to thank you, Marianne and David Avella, for being with us. And Bill Maher. It was one of the most emotional moments that we've seen in a political speech. President Trump honoring deceased Navy SEAL Ryan Owens and his wife Karen, who received a standing ovation at the joint sessions address this week. I, like so many, was moved by that moment, and then I was sickened by what I saw on television later that same night in reaction to it.
I wish she hadn't allowed herself to be used as his prop like that.
That's why she's there, as a sort of a FU to the people who are criticizing him for this. What's he thinking about? My ratings.
And how many?
Record applause. What is it? I'm going to get an Emmy for this. Most applause for a dead soldier on my watch. I mean, this is the sickness of this man.
Used? She was used by the president? I was so angry, I hit the streets. Here's tonight's Street Justice. Michael Moore, Bill Maher, the woman's being used. She's the poor woman. She's pathetic. What do you think of that?
I think that's uncalled for. I think it was a great thing because the families of our fallen and those in uniform serve just as much as those that are actually on the front line. And I think it's very disrespectful to say something like that.
Is she a woman who's being used, the widow, when both, the House was applauding her for 2 minutes?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think so.
Do you think Bill Maher and Michael Moore are right to say she's used, she's a poor, pathetic woman?
No, they shouldn't have said that. I don't think so.
Do you think she was used?
No, not at all. I think it's a disgrace that they would say those things. I think we should be proud of her husband, and I hope the Democrats and the rest of the Democratic Party start showing a little more respect.
Michael Moore and Bill Maher, they're saying she was used and the president was putting another notch on his belt. What do you think of people who say things like that? Do you agree, disagree?
It's one way to look at it.
Yeah? That she was used?
I agree completely.
That she was
I think he was banking on her suffering.
What do you think of people like Michael Moore who are saying she was being used and the poor woman? Do you think that was right?
No, I don't. No, I don't think it was right. He's a Navy SEAL, and I think people should support our military. He puts his life on the line.
Why do you think that they're being so critical for her at least being applauded? And Congress
I think he's
her.
looking to make another movie. That's what I think.
What do you think of people calling her this poor woman? She's another notch on his belt. What is that about?
She's a widow. And I think we should have compassion for her. Her husband lost her life fighting for our country.
Real fast, come on, don't make me chase you.
People are just extremely critical of everything these days.
Do you think for the next 4 years it'll change?
Oh, I imagine it's probably going to get worse.
All right, there's no hope?
No. Maybe in 5 years, check with me.
Yeah, all right. Can I interview your dog? Hey, it's Jeanine! It's Jeanine! What do you think? What do you know?
That's a negative. They shouldn't have did that at all. The guy went out there, to risk his life. And, when you risk your life, that's like risking your family life. Of course, we taking care of everybody out there.
Do you have hope for the next 4 years? Is it going to get worse?
Well, the only thing I can say, we got to ride it till the wheels fall off, because you know what? It is what it is.
Ride it till the wheels fall off? Is it a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler? What are we riding?
I think they didn't think they were going to really actually lose to a TV personality who they thought didn't have any experience, but he's been wanting to do this for many years, so that's what I think.
Why? When do you think they'll get over?
Probably never.
Do you think that things will change in the next 4 years?
I hope so.
Me too. That's it. Okay, why are they saying mean things like that?
Maybe to make him look bad, A lot of people hate Trump, so everyone hate him right now.
But why would Michael Moore and Bill Maher and all of them be saying the president shouldn't have brought her out? Don't presidents do that?
Well, that's a shame, though. If a president does that, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, but shouldn't we thank her for her husband's service?
Absolutely, yeah. She was his wife.
Right. This ain't making sense yet. Anyway, so was it a good thing or a bad thing what Michael Moore said?
Bad thing.
Good. We got it.
Yes.
Thank you. Bad.
Absolutely.
And that's the end of that.
B-A-D, bad.
Bad. We'll be right back.